So, it's been exactly 6 months since Enfield's release, and I gotta say, it's been quite the journey with all of its ups and downs. I believe I've put in a total of 500 hours by now into the game, and I think the most surprising thing to me is how much my opinion has changed about Enfield back when I first reviewed it. Some of the critiques I had at launch are still here, others have improved significantly, and recent patches introduced enough major changes that I think the game deserves a proper reassessment. And so, I thought, why not make an updated review of the game, especially since 1.4 patch recently went live, which I will talk about as well. Anyway, so I would say there's few key things that really stood out over the period of 6 months while playing the game, one of which would be progression. Majority of gacha games have their artifact system, meaning the grind never really stops. You're always chasing the next best piece, or still struggling with suboptimal pieces thanks to bad luck. Now, at first, I thought since Enfield's gear system is all predetermined, you just need to level it with some RNG. The worst it can do is time get us with the artificing catalysts. Well, that's kinda still true, but unless you're pulling for every new character, it just feels so easy to max out any unit in the game within reasonable amount of time. Granted, for some, this might be a drawback since everyone's character will be the same, unless you go for some different offset pieces, but even then, even if you gotta power through the new update, most of the latest gear can still be maxed out and ready within like 48 hours, provided you stockpiled some of those catalysts. Same goes for talents. You can easily stockpile the materials. Really, the only worst part of RNG is the essence farming. Granted, I think around 1.2 or 1.3, I can't remember when, we got these really OP turrets you can just use to AFK farm the enemies, which is pretty funny. But regardless, it's pretty clear that maxing out characters with all the materials is quite easy in the game, which to me is a huge plus and provides me with a sense of completion. Obviously, we did see a couple of times now when some of the gear sets got updated and you'd have to recraft them to achieve better results, but I think we can all agree that gearing is the chill part of the game. However, because there's more and more gear that gets released with every update, the latest change the devs introduced with 1.4 was intermediary gear. You can obtain fully artificed from just doing Arcane's trial, and hopefully future trials as well. It's about 20% worse in terms of stats, but it's perfectly serviceable gear until you can get the best in slot stuff. So nice thing to have for newbies, or even for Arcane if you pull for her and just want to take your time exploring the new 1.4 story, which needs to be completed before you can access her best gear. But let's be honest, the reason why we get to stockpile stuff was due to several times the game went into content drive phase. So most of the days you just end up logging in, do dailies, and log out. Personally, I fully cleared Valley 4 during 1.0, and then only around the middle of 1.3 patch, I actually went ahead and 100% cleared Wuling areas and quests. I think it took me about 18 episodes of Charmed, each lasting 44 minutes or so. So around 13 hours to get all stuff done before 1.4. Don't ask me why I watched the show from 1998. It's a nostalgia thing here in Lithuania. But yeah, I actually even fully cleared Etch Space Salvage and all the other content like Umbral Monument, Delver of the Cryptic, and of course all of the limited events. But still, with all of that taken into consideration, I would say, yeah, the content dryness was noticeable at times. To me, it's not a big deal since I can play other stuff besides Enfield, but perhaps for others they wanted more because I do remember back in 1.1, Qingbo Stockade was the only new zone, and the patch felt really small after 1.0's huge launch. Same goes for 1.3, where after waiting so long for new content to drop ever since previous patch, we got a filler story in Swordwall Dale. So I get it, the pacing of content wasn't ideal. Now, the other thing I've noticed was my really bad memory when it comes to base management. Whether I copied or built my own production lines, coming back even after like a few weeks, I literally had no idea what's happening. Hence, I needed to reabsorb all the info, which especially becomes tedious when there's more outposts scattered around with all the factory stuff. I have no suggestions how to solve this issue from a design standpoint, but for example, once I built all my stuff in Valley 4, I never looked back. However, in Wuling, almost every patch there's some new component or resource that will require you to rebuild your existing production lines. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul, but in 1.4 with the addition of gas, yeah, everything needs to be overhauled to accompany so much new stuff, even if it is simplifying a lot of the previous production lines. Like, for example, creating Shrinite was quite the task, but now in 1.4, you just capture Shiragen gas into these conduits and drag the underground pipes to the new outpost, which is actually quite easy since you can hold the connection even when teleporting, and then you hook up the gas to this new transmitting unit, and poof, you're now generating lots of Shrinite, baby. I mean, I love factory games, but usually I play them actively until I get bored. Then I quit, and when I come back, I just usually start from a new save file. In Enfield, going back and relearning what your base does can be a little daunting sometimes. Luckily, of course, there's guides on YouTube which help significantly. Finally, the last point to address would be the endgame of Enfield. Yeah, before 1.3 update, it was just Umbral Monument, which was decent. You get 10 minutes to complete each fight. The last 2 cycles actually contained some fun and unique challenges, but it was obviously not enough. Which is where Contingency Contract comes in, and I think it was one of the most fun modes I experienced in a gacha game. You pick some bad modifiers, and you also get to pick a few game-changing modifiers that actually help your team, and all of this culminated into a crazy first season of CC mode where Estella was the breakout star, since she can ignore cryo application on her, which was relevant because there were a bunch of ways your active unit could become frozen. The defensive capabilities of characters finally made sense in this mode, hence why Estella was such a fun discovery. On top of that, even though you only needed risk level 20 to claim all rewards, people quickly discovered how busted the combustion meta is, especially paired with Estella. You could run free-to-play teams or slightly premium teams to clear up to risk 45, provided you had the patience, even though this high-risk level doesn't provide any rewards besides bragging rights. Overall, CC mode was really great. And so this brings us now to Echoes of War mode, introduced with the new 1.4 update, which will have different seasons and remain permanent part of the game. It's fine. Basically, we have 3 stages, each with normal, hard, and brutal difficulty, and you have 10 minutes to clear them. However, if you clear brutal within 3 minutes, you get an extra rating. It's essentially a DPS check mode. Luckily, you can claim ore barrels by just doing normal difficulty, and clearing within 3 minutes brutal mode only gives you this shiny glow to the seasonal battle rank. Pure bragging rights, nothing else. Of all 3 modes, Umbral, Contingency Contract, and now Echoes of War, the latter is my least favorite, but that's only because I've seen this type of gameplay in tons of other gacha games. It's still fun to test your rotations, and enjoy the payoff of all the gear and weapons you've invested into, but for now, this mode simply lacks originality. Although the first stage is kinda like you fight 4 dummies, and each one grants different buff, so you can prioritize them differently, so that was cool. But all in all, I would say from pure gameplay perspective, Enfield has been steadily introducing new and exciting stuff. There's absolutely zero stagnation in terms of, well, innovation. Like, I briefly mentioned 1.4 all over the video, and right now I would say this is definitely one of the best updates since the game's launch. Not only do the 2 zones put together feel massive, there's so much new stuff you can find in them. I also like the fact I could brute force my own problem solving onto the game. There was this mission where you had to cleanse corruption from fissure sites, and to reach them initially, you'd have to walk this hazardous zone, which normally you'd have to survive by using this Arknights Nexus item, and you'd have to upgrade to survive harsher zones. Not me, pal. I just decided to create after each death a zipline, so I can travel faster after each iteration, and completely ignored one major mechanic of the game by just relying on good old ziplines. It's fun when the game lets you play your own way, right? Otherwise, another huge change for the game I didn't mention at the start was this material cost option, which in a nutshell states that any newest component after 1.4 update can be used to craft any gear item, but you can still use older components to craft older gear. The idea here is that you can simplify your bases by just creating the newest component production lines. No need to make Heatonite, Cuprium, or Shrinite components. Just make the new Pyrolite component and use it for every gear piece. Plus, enjoy a big 99% discount on builds, and older gear even costs 10 times less Pyrolite components. So yeah, this is a huge motivation to update your base. I guess the last thing to talk about would be the story. It got better for sure in 1.4. I like the fact Arcane's personal story was interwoven together with the main plot. Well, not interwoven, but more like they were told parallel next to each other. And also, some huge lore nuggets were dropped by the big boss of 1.4, which really made me curious as to where this story is actually heading to. But again, not much time had passed its 1.4 release. As I said, this update is massive, tons of people probably haven't completed it yet, so I won't spoil any more of it, but it's nice to see the story becoming better here. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Enfield is certainly going to be an acquired taste type of game. With all the factory management, power lines you need to drag through the map, a deep combat system, and so on, this is a game that took a big risk and went for innovation in a gacha space. Nothing's perfect. Enfield for sure is still in its learning phase, but 1.4 absolutely shows what potential the game has. I don't believe in blind negativity or positivity. Everything always can be improved upon. Well, except Chen. She's perfect. Maybe if we could get her summer skin though, right? Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe and press the like button. And I am heading back to my factory because I need to destroy it and rebuild it. Bye bye!